you everyone for joining. A good day to our distinguished delegates and esteemed speakers. And a very warm welcome to you all to the second FMN Agro live session, themed Expanding Access to Markets and Scaling Up in Agribusiness. I am Olashibumi Ojenuga. I am the Brand Marketing and Program Manager of the Agro-Allied Division at FMN, and I'll be your host for today. I will give some background to today's session and we'll get right to it. As we are aware, agriculture remains the base of Nigerians' economy, providing the main source of livelihood for most Nigerians. And although the sector faces many challenges, it employs 2/3 of the entire labor force. When you do the math, it will be, you'll see that that's a whooping sum of the population. However, the production and infrastructure hurdles have significantly stifled the performance of this sector, with supply not meeting up with the local demand, little or no value addition to products, which limits a wider access to local and international markets, also affecting income optimization and scaling up, which is meant to enable business owners enjoy economies of scale anyways. So today, the conversations will be centered around opportunities that can be leveraged on and how challenges can be mitigated to expand market reach and ultimately scale up. We also hope to gain some insights from the wheat and cassava value chains. I am actually, particularly delighted to be hosting today's session, which is in commemoration to the International Women's Day and month-long celebration. So it's an all-woman show. We have with us today two very strong forces within the FMN Agro business, and they will be sharing with us nuggets of information around the focus for today. Permit me to leave you all in the capable hands of Kehinde Akoni, who's the Program and Partnership Manager of the Wheat Value Chain Development at FMN, as she will be moderating the session. I'm sure this promises to be an engaging session. Keep the questions coming in the chat section, and permit me to leave you in the capable hands of Kehinde Akoni. Thank you so much, Kehinde, for joining. Over to you.
Thank you so much, Shibumi. Hello and welcome, everyone. My name once again is Kehinde. I'll be your moderator for this webinar. I am particularly excited about the conversations we will be having today because our panelists are women who are seasoned experts making their mark in the agri space. I have the privilege of working with one of the panelists, and I always ensure I'm with a pen and a paper, as there's always something to learn. Please brace up, as this session promises to be very enlightening and informative. Sarah has over 17 years working experience and is currently the head of the value chain of FMN. She is the head of the Wheat Development Program for Flour Milling Association of Nigeria. She has worked as the Director of Strategic Services for Agri Transformation with the Ethiopian government. She has also been the CEO of DripTech, a company focused on making low-cost irrigation in India. She works as a project manager for the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. She holds a master's degree in management sciences from MIT, a master's degree, and also a bachelor's degree in international finance from Columbia University. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Sarah Uba. Sarah, you're welcome.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. The second lady on our panel is Mrs. Nike Tinubu. Nike has over 30 years work experience where she focused in 15 years in managing the production of cassava roots and processing high quality cassava flour. She project managed the Lagos State Cassava Growing Initiative. She worked in over 5 companies focused on agriculture. She is the member of the Cassava Processing and Marketing Association of Nigeria. She is a technical stakeholder on the draft bill for cassava. She was the first president of Industrial Cassava Stakeholders Association of Nigeria. She has a law degree from CBS Greenwich, United Kingdom. She is currently the group manager. She is currently the general manager of Premium Cassava Products Limited, a subsidiary of Flour Mills of Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nike Tinubu. Nike, can you hear us?
Yes. Good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon. You're welcome. Without wasting so much of our time, welcome once again our delegates. Please feel free to share your comments, questions, and just let us know that you are, following us along this webinar in the chat room. I will start by just letting us know that reliable access to market boosts productivity, it increases income and enables scaling up. On the macro level, it strengthens food security and grows the economy. This is enabled by building a system that takes advantage of networks, innovation, rapid advances in science and technology to aid research and development while ensuring value addition. The conversation will cover value chain optimization, leveraging partnerships, value addition through innovation, technology, and market linkages, using the wheat and cassava value chain as case studies. We have a few questions that I believe will be deliberated upon today. So my first question goes to Sarah. Sarah, what do you understand by value chain optimization, and what are the key strategies an agribusiness entrepreneur can leverage on to optimize the value chain they play in? I will take it again. What do you understand by value chain optimization? And what are the key strategies an agribusiness entrepreneur can leverage on to optimize the value chain they play? Sarah, over to you.
Thanks, Kenny. Thanks very much for the kind introduction. Happy to have you on the wheat development team. I think we're all learning from each other as we go along to try to build this sector in Nigeria. In terms of value chain optimization, for me, this is basically ensuring that everybody in the value chain wins. It's the opposite of a zero-sum game of you win, I lose. It's saying through better communication, through sharing resources, through training, through investment, we can make sure that all stakeholders in a particular crop or value chain succeed and thrive. So that's the goal. Now, how do we get there? I think what I've seen one of the most critical pieces is communication between stakeholders regarding what challenges they're facing, what opportunities they see. For example, what are the challenges for a company selling seeds to farmers, or a farmer planting those seeds, a government extension agent training those farmers, trader buying the crops, et cetera. Oftentimes, there's something to be gained just from talking with other stakeholders in the value chain. A trader talks to farmers to understand when they're going to harvest and how much. Companies talk to traders to find out what's available in the market, give feedback on what quality they need. You can say this automatically happens, and sometimes it does. But often we have stakeholders operating on assumptions about each other. And we're all people and dynamic, not static. And so in addition, we're operating in a market and a climate that's constantly changing. So I think we always have to be ready to push past our assumptions and to regularly be communicating with other stakeholders in the value chain to increase the level of information available to each other. So for example, on the wheat team, we're testing seed quality with the Lake Chad Research Institute. So before, they were doing their own testing of quality as they release new seed varieties. And it wasn't very helpful to us, but we weren't really doing anything about it. So now by partnering with them and just talking to them, sharing information, understanding what their challenge is, it's some people may have assumed, they weren't interested in doing the tests that were most critical to the industry. Actually, they just don't have the equipment. And now we've agreed to do all of their quality testing. And so they're able to develop seeds that are much more useful for farmers and for the industry. And so this is something that's relatively low cost, but just by better communication with other stakeholders, you're able to see, where there are opportunities for us, where we can both win, basically. So I think when you understand people better, understand the different stakeholders better, you can propose more meaningful partnerships. And ultimately, agriculture is a long-term endeavor for most people. It rarely produces a big profit overnight. And for sustainable work within agriculture, you really need those partnerships. And I think that's built on communication.
Thank you, Sarah, for that insight. Very much enlightening. You talked about the seed development. Can you share a bit more light on it, just to tell us about it?
Sure. So just to share a little bit about what we're doing on wheat. We are collaborating now with the Lake Chad Research Institute that has the national mandate for wheat to develop new seed varieties. Some of them we're bringing in from Mexico, from Sudan, from Senegal, seed varieties that have been used in South Asia, a number of places that have a similar climate to northern Nigeria, which is where most wheat is grown. We're testing some of those on a research farm that we set up in Ringum in Chigawa, while Lake Chad also tests them in different locations. So for us to release new seed varieties, we want to see success in a variety of different climates, see how those seeds respond in different geographic areas. So we're working together to both expand that testing and also in terms of the number of different locations, as well as the number of different seed varieties, getting advice from CIMMYT and ACARDA and other international research institutes in order to make sure that we have the best quality seed available here that's most suited for the Nigerian climate. And we try to balance that with also looking at seed supply, and seed supply is a big challenge here, which maybe we'll talk about a little bit later. We want to make sure that the seed varieties that we're promoting are something that can be scaled up really rapidly, where we can bring seeds to a large number of farmers, while also looking at, okay, what's the best milling quality, what's the highest yield that we can get. So I think our collaboration with Lake Chad has been quite instrumental, and we've are working with them to release both bread and durum wheat varieties.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. Any plans to, expand beyond the wheat seeds into other crops? This initiative, any plans?
Well, with Lake Chad, I think the next step for us is to look at durum wheat. So durum wheat is for pasta. So for FMN, looking at golden penny pasta and some of the other mills also making pasta products. I think FMN as a group is also looking at how we can help the maize supply in the country and looking at improved maize seed varieties. So I think that will be another big effort. Soybean is also an area where we buy a large portion of the soybean crop, and we'd like to see improvements there, try to increase farmers' yields and increase what's available to us locally.
Thank you so much, Sarah, and quite insightful feedback also. Please, our delegates, feel free to ask questions in the chat room. As we proceed, I will take them on. My second question will be directed to Nike. Nike, how important is partnerships and building strong networks in scaling up agribusiness? I'll take it once again. How important is partnerships and building strong networks in scaling up agribusiness? Over to you, Nike.
Okay, thank you for that question. One cannot stress the importance of network, you said. Did you say network?
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes,
can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Networks. How important is partnerships and building strong networks in scaling up agribusinesses? Okay,
like Sarah said, the agribusiness is a long-term endeavor. It is not going to be practical if somebody is expecting to go into agribusiness and short-term because of the gestation period, because of the value chain that had to be linked. And in order for this to work, there has to be partnerships, not just partnerships upstream. When I mean upstream, I'm talking about production level, where you would have the partnerships between the farmer and the processing company. Most times farmers will have their produce and they wouldn't have a market for it. And most times you have processors who are looking for the raw material as feedstock for their plant. But with strong partnerships between the two, the farmer does not need to cultivate and look for market, and the processor can also look downwards to get his produce. Then you would have another layer to the partnership, which would be from the processor to another, either an end user or other off-takers. The link is, all the link have to be, they have to be interlocked for the successful outcome of the chain. Now, I'm pausing because cassava in particular is a very peculiar crop. And in order to be able to have an end-to-end successful partnership, all the links have to be together. So I cannot stress the importance of it because everything has to be interlinked.
Thank you so much, Nike. You talked a bit about cassava. I know that's one of the things that you're focused on for your career journey so far. What has been your experience? What has been your experience? Can you share a bit of more light on it? You know, because we have a lot of farmers and people who are in the agri space amongst our delegates would like to know a bit more about it. So if you care to just share more light, just a brief, like 2-minute summary of what your cassava journey has been in Nigeria.
The cassava space is very badly, or has been very badly fragmented. And the importance of having the smallholder farmer in the community with the off-takers of the produce have come a long way, because the farmers themselves are aged, and the younger ones do not have the patience to wait for the time it takes to be successful in the particular crop that they're going into. So with cassava, it has been a long journey, because one has to not only train the older farmers, one also has to train the younger farmers and continue to retrain them and mentor them to make sure that they understand the commitment it takes to stay in the business. So long term, I think we are just about getting, we're at the dawn of industrializing cassava in Nigeria. And if we are to succeed, we need to have certain objectives with the younger generation that would make the particular chain attractive to them.
Thank you so much for sharing, Nike. I know that our delegates are asking a lot of questions. Please keep them coming. We're going to collect them at the end of the session. We're going to ask all these questions. I'm seeing a few questions, but not to deter us of time. We will take all of your questions at the end of this session. Thank you, Nike, for your response. Much appreciated. And I know that a lot of young people that are amongst our delegates who want to go into farming know that right now it requires a lot of patience to farm cassava. My next question goes to Sarah. In the world that we live in, and with the onset of COVID-19, how can we leverage on technology to expand market access? And what role does data play in the scheme of things? I'll take the question again. In the world that we live in, and with the onset of COVID-19, how can we leverage technology to expand market access? And what roles does data play in the scheme of things? Over to you, Sarah.
Thanks, Kenny. When I think about technology with respect to agriculture and market access, I'm usually thinking about communications and data, data for operations, for risk management, for learning. I think like many businesses, the management of our field operations absolutely depends on WhatsApp right now. Now we are looking at other platforms where we may be able to collect more data on our farmers to be able to serve them more effectively on a year-on-year basis. So I saw someone asked about contract farming. So yes, we have an outgrower program for wheat where we've provided input loans to farmers of certified seed, of fertilizers, and agrochemicals. In addition to trainings, before the season, during the season, at harvest, we're also, we have staff in the field who are visiting these farmers usually every 2 weeks to see how things are going. And then we buy from them at the end of the season and deduct from what we pay them the value of the inputs. So this is for us an opportunity to demonstrate to farmers, if you use all of the right inputs and you have proper training, how profitable can you be? How high can your yields be? Now these programs are pretty intensive to run. There's a lot of staff, there's a lot of data, and I think to try to run these programs more efficiently and effectively, it helps to have some technology tools. And so we're trying to increase that in our own program. We are now at FMN piloting using a software from a company called CropIn in India that's backed by the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, has had good success working with food companies around the world in terms of tracking our outgrowers. And we're hoping this will allow us to be able to visualize where outgrowers are, to be able to track the history of each farmer, to be able to go to a field and say, okay, these were the challenges the farmer already faced before. I know when they planted, I know their expected harvest date, and I can advise them appropriately. So that all sounds quite valuable, and it is. I think with a lot of digital tools, there's a question of at what cost. We're fortunate that we're piloting this program with support from Mercy Corps, and we will be evaluating from a commercial perspective, does this platform have a good ROI that makes sense? Otherwise, we're also using other survey apps that are a bit lighter touch. I know some organizations program their own apps. Since we are relatively new to the outgrower space, don't have huge programs yet. We're trying to evaluate first existing software out there. But I know a lot of companies that once they get to a larger scale end up programming their own. Another area in terms of technology and data that I think is helpful is looking at communications with farmers. This is something that I've had experience with in other countries, in Ethiopia and India, but something that we would like to also be piloting here at FMN, which is using SMS and interactive voice response to communicate directly with farmers, either with respect to training or to communicating with them about, okay, this is where you go pick up your inputs. This is where we are buying this season. So for example, right now, we are in our wheat program, which is in Kano, Jigawa, and Kebbi this season. We have established 5 collection points in each of those states. And we have staff there ready to buy wheat grain from anyone, any farmer who's ready to sell. We want to make sure that we can get that information out to as many farmers as possible. And so, being able to send out an SMS blast can also be another way, in addition to radio or just our on the ground monitoring, to communicate that to farmers. Of course, when you're looking at technology solutions for agriculture, it's really important to look at things like, does it work offline? When my network goes out, will I still get a GPS tag of where the farmer is? Will I lose data? Will I be able to access data while I don't have connectivity? Also, given that a lot of our staff have limited familiarity with digital technology, we want to make sure that whatever tools we're using are really simple, straightforward, just the minimum that's needed to get the job done and no extra bells and whistles. So I think overall, technology in terms of digital technology is really helpful for us in terms of communicating with a field team that's all across the country in real time when there's changes to crops or pricing, as well as to monitoring farmers in a more cost-effective way.
Thank you, Sarah. You mentioned something about the SMS and interactive. Oh, sorry, my
Voice
video.
response.
So how does that technology work?
So SMS is just text messaging like you have on your phone, but you can work with vendors to send out bulk SMS to farmers that you've already registered for other programs. So we may have farmers that we have sold inputs to before, who we've given input loans to before, who we've purchased their crops from, and we may use that to communicate, okay, here's a new opportunity for you. Now, interactive voice response is something that's valuable in rural areas, particularly when you have farmers who aren't literate, to be able to have or voice messages that go out where people can listen to your communication rather than just reading it. So we'll be experimenting with that in the season to come. I think right now we're looking at how can we track things like harvest operations. So we are maybe going back to the theme of partnerships. We are partnered with a company called Tractor on the Go to provide mechanized services for our wheat farmers, specifically combine harvesters, which would harvest, thresh, and winnow wheat all at one time, and threshers for farms that are a bit more scattered. So this partnership really also relies on us being able to effectively track operations in the field, see which machines are functioning, which machines need maintenance, where do we need fuel, are the operators arriving on time? And so some even simple survey tools, we're using a Kaizala app, for example, that's part of Microsoft. Even simple tools like that can really be a big improvement above paper-based reporting and just calling each person. So we found that to be quite helpful.
Oh, thank you, Sarah. And I understand that most farmers are actually not so literate. How do you mitigate that gap? Lots of them don't understand English. How do you manage all of that challenge? Or I want to believe that it could be a challenge most of the time if you're dealing with someone who doesn't really understand what you're saying. There's that communication gap. How do you guys just bridge that?
Well, I think the most important thing is to have a team that does speak the farmer's language. So most of our team speaks Hausa. Certainly all the team that's in the field speaks Hausa. So that's the number one thing. Of course, in-person communication is a lot of farming, and I don't think you can ever get away from that. Particularly at the stage we're at, where we're trying to change farmers' behavior, trying to get them interested in new crops. You can't do that remotely. And although these digital tools are helpful for tracking and monitoring, rarely can you convince someone to change their livelihood or to make a big investment just based on digital communication. And so that in-person interaction is still quite critical to what we do. We also do some radio programs. So for example, in Kebbi, in partnership with Oxfam, we have radio programs there telling farmers about well, actually some farmers have come on to share their own experience with the program, and our agronomists also will discuss, okay, how is irrigation different for wheat versus rice? How do you know when your crop is ready for harvesting? How do you deal with stem borer? Different issues like that. So in-person interaction with local team, and then the local team beyond language is also quite valuable in terms of credibility with farmers, being able to understand, okay, well, what is life really like in Jigawa? I know that there was flooding last season. I know that what is this particular community known for? I know some of the local leaders, so that can also be helpful in communicating and influencing farmers.
So if I hear you correctly, the fact that you have your staff, your representatives present right there it sort of builds trust between the farmers and the association, if I hear you correctly. Is that what you're trying to say? Because
that's absolutely critical, yes. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Sarah. And Nike, I have a question for you. And in the value chain that you are, precisely cassava, what opportunities are available that young agripreneurs can leverage on? I'm stressing much more on value addition. For example, Nigeria is the highest producer of cassava, yet most of its starch and other industrial cassava products are imported. How can people who want to get into this space leverage on value addition?
Okay, value addition is important because the adage that says the more you practice, the more perfect you are. When we have the raw material that has minimal value by the time the end product gets to the table, when you add value, you get more out of it, and it's more so. And you can add value to cassava at every stage. Because cassava is predominantly a native crop for local consumption, we need to concentrate on having the high variety, having a high yield, high starch yield variety, so that commercial farmers and commercial processors, medium to large scale processors coming into the space can benefit from the starch. And I also feel that cassava starch and cassava flour is a good competitor for corn starch. And if if agribusinesses can concentrate on upscaling the production and processing of cassava starch and or cassava flour, it would reduce the amount of importation. And we also need to have encouragement and backup and government incentives to reduce the cost of production and improve the infrastructure that adds to these costs for our products to be competitive with the international market.
Thank you, Nike. I just have one more question. And the question is, you've talked a lot about cassava. What are the peculiar challenges faced by women in agriculture based on your experience, and how can they surmount it?
The main challenge, the first challenge that comes to mind that most women face is access to land. Most of the land that cassava is cultivated on are either family-owned land or it belongs to the husband. And the women tend to be the workers on the farm, and they don't actually benefit as such in the outcome of it. So women, even though we seem progressive in Nigeria, women have a lot of challenge getting direct access to land. But then another challenge that women face is the fact that agriculture in the Southwest especially is male dominated. So women have to work twice as hard and they have to push twice as hard to get noticed. And because of the culture, locally, women also take a back seat. So even if they are at the epicenter, they are the core business holder, they still push men forward to front for them. I think that we need to encourage women to be confident enough to take front seat. Even the educated women like myself also still have to battle with tradition, with customs, and age-old issues. And despite the fact that I'm also Nigerian, it's still doubly difficult to get ahead as a woman in the cassava business.
Wow. Thank you so much, Nike. It seems like farming, it's a male-dominated sector in Nigeria, and it's very important for women to, get into the space, see what it is about. I also asked the same question to Sarah. What do you think are the challenges that women face? How can women key into the agric space in terms of value addition? What do you think they need to be doing differently?
Thanks, Kenny. I also would like to just mention a few of the opportunities that I think are available there for both men and women, and then talk about the challenges for women in agriculture generally. And of course, I'm advocating for the wheat program as something that I'm pretty committed to and passionate about right now. We are particularly keen to be able to work with people on seed production. We'd like to see a much larger stock of certified seed available in the country. And there are not very many people who are producing wheat seed today. Another area for potential partnership for agri-entrepreneurs would be around mechanized services. For farmers to be able to turn over their land quickly between crops, particularly for some farmers who want to grow wheat and rice, both within the dry season, or wheat and a vegetable crop. Being able to turn over that land quickly is quite important. Not to mention the importance of, say, land leveling for irrigation, or threshing and harvesting machinery that helps to reduce the losses that normally come from manual harvest. And then the third area, I would say, so seed production, mechanized services. The third area would be contract farming programs, commercial farms. We are looking for more partners to help us grow wheat, to get more farmers into wheat production. And so we've seen some good young ag entrepreneurs pulling together, a group of a few hundred farmers to be able to, farm 500 hectares of land. And we can partner with those types of organizations. Assuming you can monitor and manage your farmers, we can provide training, potentially facilitate access to inputs, and certainly provide offtake at a competitive price. So those are just some opportunities that I would highlight, because I know a lot of people on the call are looking at, what are my immediate business opportunities. In terms of the challenges that women face in agribusiness and agriculture, a couple of things that I've run across. One is often, are you hardy enough, or are you really a field person? Are you willing to be tired and dirty? And I mean, how do you address that? You just do it. You just spend time in the field, and people understand. Okay, well, women can also do this. And obviously, there are a lot of women farmers, but I think in the agribusiness space, it's mostly men. Agriculture has a lot of older men, and I've seen older women tend to talk over younger women, kind of drown them out. And this is something I haven't had as much of an issue with, but I've noticed happen to others. And that's not because of my particular skill, but it's because I'm foreigner. So I think a lot of people think of me as a foreigner more than as a woman. And so I think for a young Nigerian woman, they may have more challenges sometimes to be heard. And so I think, it's really just about be respectful, but demand your share of time, give people the benefit of the doubt, but, make sure that you state your piece. And I feel like women usually do the work and usually are credible. So if you can combine that with some confidence, and sometimes you have to fake it till you make it, you will make progress. I think the nice thing about agriculture is that people are generally pretty pragmatic. Because agriculture is a long game, the people involved are not, quick dealers and they're usually pretty straightforward operational people. And so if they see that, you're there more than one season, you know what you're talking about, you put in the time, I think you'll make progress and you'll gain respect. The last thing, of course, which is unavoidable, is that there are some safety challenges for women in terms of field work. We actually do have one woman center coordinator, Aisha. I know she's mentioned saying a prayer each morning before she heads out to visit farmers, and she's traveling by herself. I have the fortune of always being traveling with teammates, so my safety is less of an issue. So I think in terms of the field work, though, really getting to know the community and having them know you and value you is important, but that's always going to be a challenge for women working in agriculture, which is not a challenge of women, but it's a challenge of the men who don't respect that woman.
Thank you so much, Sarah. I will just take questions from some of our delegates, and just give me a minute. Because one of our delegates said they're particularly interested in cassava processing, and he would like to know what state in Nigeria he can get cassava tubers in excess at an affordable price. Care to share light on that?
That's $1 million question, because at the moment cassava is as expensive as gold.
Oh.
The southwest of Nigeria is the cassava belt. So okay. Most of the states in the southwest would grow the cassava roots, it's highly concentrated in Oyo State, especially Oyo North. Wow. However, cassava can grow basically almost anywhere. But it's important that when you go into the production of cassava, you choose a state that would give you a highest harvest yield. So for example, Lagos is in the southwest, and Lagos State grows cassava, but the yield is lower than what you would get in Ogun State, Oyo State, and the other southwestern states, because of the type of soil. So the bottom line is that you should do your soil testing regardless. But I will still reiterate that the southwest is the highest producer of cassava.
Okay, thank you.
So if you want to go into cassava production, you could start from there.
Thank you, Nika. Being the GM of one of our subsidiaries, is there a delegate is asking, how do I register to FMN as a fresh cassava supplier? What are the prerequisites for this? Do we have a scheme like that? And if somebody wants to, be a part of that initiative, how can they join in? Nika, over to you.
It's quite easy to join, and it's straightforward. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Please proceed.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, it's quite easy to join, and it's straightforward. We have a profile for suppliers, and growers as well. We also have about growers. And if you are a middleman who buys from the farmers to sell, we have a different criteria for them. So you can either reach out to us at the factory site in Ososa in Ogun State, or you could email us and we will send all the different categories out, and the supplier can choose which one would suit them better.
Nika, do you care to share the
And
emails
also,
where?
Yes, you can send to me. It's ntinubu@fmnplc.com, and I'll forward it to the relevant department.
Okay, thank you so much, Nika. And to our
And
delegates,
it's
there you have it.
important that any supplier, again, it's important that any supplier make contact first, because of the, we only use a specific type of fresh cassava roots for our production. And as most people who are familiar with the crop will know, that there are different varieties of cassava.
Okay, thank you, Nika. Another delegate, Tony, says, I am a student of Landmark University. How do I get a partnership with FMN Agro towards my idea of driving young ones, youths in universities into agribusiness and see the future of agriculture with our larger able land? I know you made mention that cassava has so much older people planting and growing it. A young person is asking that, is there a scheme to partner? He's interested in doing that, and if he wants to.
Yes, we have in-grower programs. In-growers are young, mostly young people who want to go into cassava cultivation for the first time, or who want an entry into the cassava value chain. And we have most of the facilities that they would need if it is so wish. We would have most of the facilities in the sense that we would have a nucleus farm for them, or we could have block farms for them. We provide in-house training. We provide field extension training. We provide agronomy and agripreneurship training for the young people. And we guide and assist them right through this process. And we also buy back the produce from them at the end of the term. So it would be a good idea for young people, male and female, to come into this sort of program, because it would give them an entry into the cassava value chain. I mean, I have an example of a young intern who came in as an IT for industrial attachment, and he's now a credible medium-scale cassava farmer, and she's female.
Wow, impressive. Nice work. We have so many questions. Our delegates are asking so many questions, and we are running out of time. We cannot take them. But there's one last question I would take, which is directed to Sarah. Adeleye is asking, as a maize farmer, there is a big gap in storage and drying. Most farmers still rely on sun drying. There is need for investors or government to provide drying facilities at each state, or investors can strategically locate these facilities. Farmers will be ready to pay this service to harvest their fresh produce, dried for better storage. I will also be glad to know if there are other ways around this that I'm not aware of. You care to share light, Sarah?
Sure. I unfortunately am not an expert on the maize value chain here, but I would be happy to connect you with my colleague, Mr. Fashademi, who is working with maize farmers. So I will also put his email in the chat as well with respect to maize, and he will be able to speak to you about that.
Okay. Thank you so much, Sarah. Thank you so much, Nike. We're running out of time, but I want our delegates to know that all of their questions are valid. So we're going to collate all of these questions and find ways to answer them and respond back to you via the various channels that we have your email address. So we'll send those responses to you. Thank you so much, Nike, once again. Thank you, Sarah, for sharing such wisdom and enlightening us so much about cassava. I know I've learned so much about cassava today. I've also learned so much about wheat, the outgrower scheme, and all of the, data and technology that's been infused into agriculture in Nigeria today. And without further ado, I will drop my virtual mic. It's been a pleasure speaking with each and every one of you. And our delegates, thank you once again for joining in. Thank you for your questions. We very much appreciate. On behalf of Flour Mills of Nigeria, my name is Kende, and have a good afternoon. Over to you, Shubhumi.
Thank you so much, Kende. Thank you for coordinating that session so effortlessly and effectively. You did an amazing job. You did an amazing job. Couldn't have been any better. And so, esteemed and power-packed panelists, thank you so much, Sarah and Nike. I know that you are very, very busy women. So thank you so much for taking time out of your very busy schedule to do this. I believe that a lot has been learned and it couldn't have been any better. And I'm very much certain that the takeaways will further deepen our thinking and stimulate actions that would bring about growth in our various businesses within the agri value chain. And to everyone that joined, for more information on FMN Agro, our value chains, and to engage with us, you can visit our website, www.fmnagro.com. And you can also follow our social media platforms at the FMN Agro on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. I know there were so many questions and Kende couldn't get around everything. So what we're going to do is we're going to collate the questions and form them into content, which we will, amplify on our different social media platforms in the coming weeks. So do follow us to get more insights and information around these topics. And also, we know that Sarah is the head of the wheat value chain development. And this is in conjunction with other flour millers in the country. So to keep up with all that we're doing, alongside the other members of the Flour Milling Association of Nigeria in the wheat value chain, you can also follow at the FMN NG on Instagram and Facebook, and at FMN NG _ on Twitter. We'll post it all on the chat section now. Once again, we apologize that we couldn't answer all your questions. This was due to the time constraint. We said it's going to be 1 hour and we don't want to go beyond that time frame that has been set. So you can click on the links that are shared on the chat section to follow us. It's been a pleasure being with all of you today. Thank you and bye for now.
For 60 years, Flour Mills of Nigeria have been feeding the nation by enriching lives and empowering communities. We provide nutritious and affordable food products to Nigerians every day. Invest in backward integration programs to increase local production in the agricultural sector. Reduce environmental waste in our operations. Create shared value for our shareholders and investors. Most importantly, showed up for our dear nation when it needed us the most. Now, we are proud to present our 2019-2020 Sustainability Report on how our business impacts the nation, the environment, and initiatives that occurred within our owned and managed operational facilities nationwide. Flour Mills of Nigeria, feeding the nation every day.